Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. It is episode number 57, and today we are talking about the things that we are excited for the rest of this season. As always, I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co-host, Saur. How you feeling tonight, man?
Jealous, very jealous. I am surrounded by envy because I see Columbus and LAFC in the final. It's going to be a juicy, juicy final, and I can't believe Inter Miami is not in it. And I am upset and disappointed, and I want to punch the wall. But here I am trying to find a cathartic outlet, and the best way to do that is through this podcast. So, how are you, my friend Scotty?
You know, it came to me today. What is success for Inter Miami this season? And, we talked about and I think a popular talking point in the offseason was how many trophies does Inter Miami need to win in order for it to be a success? How many, whatever, do they have to win the MLS Cup? Do they have to win the Supporters Shield? Do they have to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup? Do they have to win 3 trophies? Whatever.
Yes,
And I
yes, yes, and
realized,
yes.
well, then it's a failure already. But I think for me, success has Inter Miami established itself as the very best team in the MLS by the end of this season. And right now, obviously, they haven't. And we look at Leagues Cup, and you have 2 teams, the Columbus Crew and the LAFC, that both, I think, can have a claim to that title of the best team in the MLS. And so I think for Inter Miami to have a successful season, they have to show that they are the best team in MLS. And that means, I think it means winning the Supporters Shield and winning the MLS Cup, I think. But I also think there's a scenario where it doesn't mean that under the right circumstances. And I also think there are circumstances where you win both, but you still don't feel like you're the best team. And so to me, it's not a matter of specific qualifications as much as just, is this the best team? Are they going to play Columbus or LAFC and be the favorites? And are they going to do it on a neutral site? Are they going to do it on the road and be the favorites, right? Things like that. And so that is, I think, how I'm going to measure success for the rest of the season, because that will lead us into 2025, where I think you have to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup and you have to win every trophy that you haven't already won this season. One of the things we saw earlier in the season that I think held this team back was a lack of continuity. And so now that you'll have Julian Gressel in the system, now that you'll have a lot of these players that I think will be back next year ready to go, especially on defense, David Martinez, Tota Aviles, guys like that, you should feel like we have the continuity. We're ready to go attack this thing. And if we don't win it, we've failed to do what we wanted to do. So that's how I'm feeling, man. That was my revelation for today. That's what success is for this Inter Miami team. And are they going to achieve that? I don't know. I'm not going to watch this Columbus LAFC game, but certainly those are 2 teams that I think are going to be standing in our way if we want to be that. So,
Yeah, and this might be us just being a little bit, just coping a little bit to Inter Miami's loss against Columbus previously. But I feel like the season has been a lot about trying to define some of the unknowns and figuring out the right answers. I feel like there are more questions than answers at this point in time about what the best setup for this team is, where the best positions are for a lot of these players. So by the end of the season, I don't know if we're going to have all the answers. I hope we do, and I hope we settle into a good rhythm. But I think this does set us up really well for next season, where, as you mentioned, a lot of these players are going to come back and know their roles on the team, know how we're going to perform, know exactly what our gaps are. And maybe next year is a better platform for us to go out and win all of those trophies that we thought we would be able to win this year. We were clearly not ready to win 4 trophies this year. We still got 2 trophies that we could potentially win, one of the big ones. And yeah, we'll see how we get there eventually, and whether we win it by absolutely decimating everybody in our path or we fight our way towards the end of it. I don't think it's going to be easy, and there are a lot of answers to be had before we get to the playoffs as well. So long journey still left, and we'll see where we get to at the end of the season.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I am still kind of bummed about that Columbus game.
Yeah.
It is
I just want to
weighing
see
on me.
Inter Miami play now.
Yes. And that's part of it, is you want to overcome it. almost as soon as you sort of have it, you want to start the next game as soon as the last game ended. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we play Cincinnati on Saturday night, and so we're either going to feel way worse, and we talk about being the best team. Another team is standing in our way, and a team that just thumped us at their place, not even maybe a month ago or so, and now they're coming back to our place, and we are expecting, or we should be expecting, to get a little payback. And if that doesn't happen, I think combined with the Leagues Cup exit, it's going to be a very big disappointment. And so I just wish we were playing Montreal or like the Revolution or something. But
I know, man. But knowing this Inter Miami team, I feel like every time we've gone up against these bigger teams, we have been the underdogs, because either we don't have the available players, or there's been an injury, or we're just up against it. And it seems like every time we are the underdogs, we win. And then when we are expected to win, we sort of let ourselves down, as happened against Columbus this time around, where after beating Columbus the first time, everyone thought that, okay, this team could do it again. I know we weren't the clear favorites by any means, but there was definitely a sense of hope. The first time we played Columbus, we had no choice, no shot at beating them. At least that's what we thought. And we went ahead and beat them. But then there was a 6-1 that happened against Cincinnati, which was, I don't care what form we're in, we still lost that quite badly. So either it's retribution, or it's going to be another rant about Tata Martino. We'll see.
Yeah, and you know what? This isn't the point of this episode. Just for the record, guys, we're going to be talking about the things that we're excited for the rest of this season. There are 9 games left in the regular season. We've picked out 10 things that we are excited about, and we're going to talk about them, and we're going to hopefully get you guys excited for these things. But before we do, let's get the bad stuff out of the way. We talked about this over the last couple of weeks, but Saturday night, we're going to get that lineup an hour before kickoff, and that is going to tell us how we're going to feel all the way until the end of the game. Because if anything goes wrong throughout that game, we're just going to blame it on whatever problem we see in the lineup, or we're going to feel great about the lineup, and because we're a couple of knucklehead geniuses, we'll be right, and then we'll win the game. So we'll just feel good for the whole time. I expect to not get the lineup that I think we would want, but that is not our prerogative.
I don't even know what to say about the lineup at this point in time, because I know when everyone's available, that's when Tata Martino chooses the worst lineup possible. So you've just put me in a bit of a dilemma, because I'm not excited for that team news to come out. And every time team news comes out, you look at the screen and I can see it in your face that something's off. So I'm not excited for that moment, but we'll see. We will see how this Inter Miami team prepares. They've had a fair bit of time off to contemplate, regather themselves, and sort of just start a little bit afresh. And hopefully everyone's kicking to get going. We spoke to Yannick Bright, who definitely seemed like someone who wanted to get back into the groove of things and get the result against Cincinnati. I think there's a disappointment overall, but there's nothing better than a team wanting to prove to the world that they can actually do it. So if they go with that attitude, I'm sure we're going to win that game.
Should we get into the main topic of the day?
Yeah, I think we've bummed each other out already. So I think we need to uplift the spirits a little bit.
Okay. So I want to preface this because about 2.5 months ago, or actually just under 2 months ago, at the beginning of June, I tweeted out 5 things that Inter Miami fans should be excited for over the 6 weeks that everyone was going to be away from Inter Miami for Copa America, mainly Messi and Suarez. And I'm going to read you my list. And as you guys can tell, 3 to 3.5 of these ended up happening. But so like just to set the record for and the reference for when we give our 10 things now. But these were the 5 things I thought Inter Miami fans should be excited about. Leo Campana breaking the all-time scoring record. I give half a credit for that because he did end up tying it. It didn't happen in that 6-week span, but he did end up tying it. So congratulations to him. But maybe a quarter of a mark for that. Ian Frey's triumphant return. I think I nailed that one, right?
For most parts, again, I give you a half point because it started off as very triumphant with a couple of goals, and then since then the fires died out a little bit. Not because of Ian Frey's fault by any means. So yes, I'll give you a little bit of credit for that one.
I think I deserve 100% of a point for that because Ian Frey has been triumphant every minute he's been on the field. Number 3, Robbie Robinson going to have his Linsanity run. That didn't happen. He got cut like a week and a half later. So gonna give myself 0 points for that one.
Yeah.
Diego Gomez coming back to health and being the guy he was. Check mark, nailed that one. He has been back and he has been just as good as he was when he left. And then number 5, the emergence of Yannick Bright. Again, I'm giving myself a full point for that one. So that tweet kind of inspired this episode. Those were 5 things to look forward to. But tonight, we're going to go over 10 things because it is a little down in Inter Miami's world. We just got kicked out of Leagues Cup. There hasn't been a lot of fun news. There hasn't been a lot of good news. And
no
so
transfer activity.
No transfer activity. The window closed with a whimper for Inter Miami. They can still sign a free agent, but that hasn't really materialized into anything so far. And the free agents are coming off the board. So it's been kind of slow. Not a lot of good things have happened. So we want to try and get everyone's energy and excitement back up. And that is what we're talking about today. Should we just get into number 1?
Let's go.
Number 1 thing I am most looking forward to for the rest of this season is Inter Miami with Lionel Messi going up against the Columbus Crew on October 2nd. I think that is going to be the game of the season. It is the third to last game of the regular season, at least for Inter Miami. And so assuming that both teams are still alive to win the East, assuming both teams are still alive to win the Supporter Shield, that is going to be a heck of a game. And finally, for the first time, Inter Miami will get to face this juggernaut, this colossus that has been so terrifying to so many MLS teams and has gone to so many finals and has won trophies. We're going to be able to face them at full strength for the first time. It'll also be Lionel Messi's first time going up against the Columbus Crew, even going back to last year. So to me, that is going to be the most fun and exciting game we have left on our schedule. And it will only be that way if Lionel Messi's on the pitch, because I think he changes. Of course he does. He changes everything. Give me that matchup and I will be happy. That will be a good Saturday.
It's an absolute shame that when
and by
Lionel
Saturday,
Messi got injured,
it's a Wednesday
Saturday.
night.
That's what I was gonna refer to as well. It's an
Unbelievable.
absolute shame that Lionel Messi is unable to play against FC Cincinnati, because when he got injured in that final, in that Copa America final, it was downplayed a little bit. I know the team came out to say that it's going to be taken, day by day basis, and we're going to evaluate him on a regular basis to see how he recovers. But it's been a long layoff for him, and it was by no means an easy recovery from this injury. And at this point, it almost feels like Lionel Messi is that unique superpower that you can only unleash a few times in the season. You're not allowed to use that card every single time you go out to play. That's what it feels like. And at this point, I think he's played lesser games than Matias Rojas, than Federico Redondo even, I think. So I can't wait for him to be back. Not just against Columbus, first of all. I just can't wait for him to be back on the pitch, because the things that he does, we've forgotten how brilliant he can be for us. So that is definitely important.
For the record, he has played more games than Matias Rojas and has played the same number of games as Federico Redondo and played more minutes than each of them. Yeah. But I hear your point. I don't really want to go there with Messi, because I think it's really been this one layoff that's been super long. I know he had an injury earlier in the season. I know he missed 1 or 2 games because of sort of rest, that Montreal home game, the Vancouver road trip. But he, aside from this layoff that's now been a very long time, he has been sort of fit and firing. We'll talk about Messi more as this episode goes on, but I saw a tweet today by Tom Bogert who mentions that Cucho Hernandez, who is one of the best players in the league, has 15 goals and 10 assists in the MLS/Leagues Cup this season, which is 25 goal contributions. This doesn't include the CONCACAF Champions Cup. They did make a deep run there, so he has a few more from that. But basically from the MLS and from Leagues Cup, 25 goal contributions, which is incredible. They're talking about how this is the best player in the league, or up there. And then I looked at it. Lionel Messi for us this season has 15 goal contributions, and so and of course that's in half the time.
I don't put it past him to come back and actually beat that record. If he comes back in the next 2 weeks, he will.
He will finish with more goal contributions than Cucho Hernandez, despite playing half a season.
So going back to your original point about Lionel Messi being available against Columbus, that's going to be huge. And especially at the moment that the game comes during the season, like one of the final games of the season, potentially determining who's going to win the Supporters' Shield is going to be such a big lift. And I can't wait for him to play against one of the best teams in the league.
The other thing I want to say about this is that when Messi comes back, I expect Tata Martino to go right back to the most frustrating lineup he can possibly put out there, which would take out Yannick Bright from the midfield, which would play Chelo Wiegand, which would, the style that we saw earlier in the season that had us lose the midfield a lot and made us win games 4-2 or 3-2 or 3-1. Score, like, it forced us to score a lot of goals. He doesn't need to do that, and so I think when Messi comes back, he's going to go back to that style, but he's going to slowly revert back and introduce the thoughts and ideas and player personnel packages that will be the most successful. And I think that game is going to be the first time we see it all come to fruition with Messi on the field. And that means a midfield that's strong defensively with Yannick Bright in it. It means Ian Frey at right back, spoiler alert. And it just means that there's going to be a complete team, a complete performance. And I think that could be the first time we really see the team that we're going to go into the playoffs with. So I'm really looking forward to that game.
Just a question. Do you think we've seen the best starting 11,
no,
according to us, on the pitch at any point during the season?
No. Do you? No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So the fact that we haven't had that is insane to me, whether it's because of Tata's decision-making or whether it's because of injuries happening in and around. I think at this point in time, it's become fairly obvious what the best starting 11 for this team is. And the fact that we've not been able to see that is an absolute injustice to us as fans. And I can't wait for that to be corrected over the course of the season.
And I think it's going to. I do think Tata is going to revert back. Even when Messi comes back, I think he's going to put.
Even if it's by accident, I don't mind. Even if it's by accident.
We had someone in our chat when we were doing the pregame show for the Columbus game talk about how he's putting Gressel on the bench because he knows he has to, win this game. He really wants it. And I think that's going to be a similar theme the next time we go to Lower.com Field, where Gressel's going to start in the midfield every game until then. But in that game, he's going to go with Bright, Busquets, and Diego Gomez in the midfield because he knows that's his best midfield. And I'm really excited for that. You want to do number 2?
So my number 2 is me being very excited to see Yannick Bright go up against Lucho Acosta for the second time, and this time getting the better of him. For those of you who didn't watch our previous podcast, we had the honor to interview Yannick Bright. That was a great conversation. We had some good discussion about tactics, about Inter Miami. So I'd urge you to go watch that. But in that conversation, he mentioned how Lucho Acosta was the toughest opposition that he's come up against. And for him, it was very difficult to try and contain Acosta just by virtue of how quick-footed he is, by the way he plays, by the way he shifts around, by the way he moves side to side very easily. And he admitted that it was a very difficult opposition to face. And by all accounts, it seems like he's more than ready to go up against him again to try and prove that he can actually go toe-to-toe with one of the best attackers in the league. And I can't wait to actually see that, but also more so to see how Yannick Bright responds to a setback that he faced in the last game where we lost 6-1. How does he respond, and how does his tactical acumen develop to be able to adjust and make those different movements to try and keep up with someone like Lucho Acosta? So I'd be keeping an eye out for that, especially on Saturday, where I hope Yannick Bright, if not starts, gets on the field at some point during the game.
Dude, he has to start.
He has to start.
Like, if if we didn't learn from last, and this is what I don't like about this timing of this game is I don't feel that confident that he's going to start, but I think he has to, considering how they performed last game. And again, I think Tata Martino has to treat this like a must-win game just to prove that we can go out and beat this team. We can go out and compete with them. And if we face them in the playoffs, we're not coming off back-to-back beatdowns where we feel like this could be trouble. I'm looking forward to it too, man. Yannick talked about it, and it got me excited because I think that's the first time he really struggled. And I don't even think he had a bad game, but certainly in terms of team success, that's the one game he's really started that this team hasn't gotten out of what they, out of the game, what they wanted. Even earlier in the season against Vancouver, against Charlotte. Oh my God, he didn't start against Charlotte. Doesn't matter. The point is that when he plays, the team has been very good, especially defensively, other than this one game where Lucho Costa was getting wide and being a threat. And of course, some other players played really well in that game. Our center backs did not play well. We will correct that, but I'm worried that by correcting the center backs, Tata is going to feel like he doesn't need Busquets back there, which means he's going to put Busquets at the 6, and I feel like we might have the same problem. But if that does happen, I do think we'll see Bright in the second half, and I do think that would be the last time we see that. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think the biggest issue against Cincinnati was definitely not Bright in the midfield. I think it was how high the backline was playing. So even if he starts, I think the team needs to be set up tactically correct, because Cincinnati is not an opposition that will let you off the hook if you make stupid errors like the tactical mistakes that we made against them. Maybe if we made that same tactical error against another team, we would have gotten away with it perhaps, but you can't do that against Cincinnati. So I think it's a combination of everything, but I'm quite excited to see that duo between Yannick Bright and Lucho Costa. And yeah, Skrilla mentions that Bright will start because Redondo is not at 100%. I hope so. I hope that's a consideration. But at this point in time, I really think it shouldn't matter who's 100% and who's not 100%. A player like Bright with his defensive acumen needs to be on the pitch regardless. So I'm just tired and just waiting for Tata to come to that realization. And hopefully he does at some point during this season. But yeah, it is what it is. Let's see what midfield we come up with, because that's really going to determine the mood of the game as well before the game starts.
Yeah, sorry. I feel like we're supposed to like hype people up and get people really excited for this, and I don't know if we're doing a great job of it so far. So let's fix that. I think our defense will play better on Saturday night. I think we will not give up 6 goals, and so that's something to be excited about.
Yeah. I think we're going to score more than 1 as well. That's what I think. So I think we're going to be fine.
Okay, the third one that I am very, very excited for is Ian Frey and Lionel Messi playing on the same side of the pitch together. We have seen Messi partner since he got to Inter Miami with, and by partner, I mean, him playing at right wing and the fullback behind him. DeAndre Yedlin, Chelo Wigan, neither are particularly dangerous or effective going forward. And so that overlap is not particularly threatening or dangerous. And now we have Ian Frey, who is very good, very confident, very skillful going forward, and has vision and has the ability to make plays. We have seen it consistently on the other side, Jordi Alba getting high up the pitch. If we can get that from the same side that overlaps with Lionel Messi, it will only open up space, drag the defense wider apart, giving more space and freedom to Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez in the middle of the pitch. This, to me, is going to be game-changing for our offense. It's going to allow our 2 superstar creative players in Messi and Suarez to find more space, create more chances, create more opportunities, and because they are so good, score more goals. This is the single tactical personnel pairing I am most excited for the rest of the season, and I hope Tata Martino puts it out the very first game that Messi's available, because, man, it could be special. Wingers that have a fullback that they are confident and that can overlap effectively and be dangerous, opens up the game of the winger, and it happens across Europe. Even at the best wingers in the world see their game rise when they have a fullback that is effective in that role. And Ian Frey is the only player on this roster that can actually do that. And we haven't really seen them play together since Lionel Messi arrived at Inter Miami, because in the same game Messi made his debut, Ian Frey tore his ACL in the first half, Messi debuted in the second half. And of course, since Messi's been gone at the Copa America, that's when Ian Frey came back. And so we've never seen the two on the field at the same time together. I am so excited to see those two interact and overlap and play off each other, because I think it's going to be beautiful.
That's a fantastic shout, actually. So the more I think about it and the way you were describing it, thus far we've played Lionel Messi with someone like Wigan, who doesn't necessarily go as far up, or when he does venture out that high, he's not as effective. What usually happens is Lionel Messi cuts inside. There's plenty of space for the right wing back or the right back to bomb down and get involved in the attack. Cello doesn't do that effectively. It forces someone like Gressel out into that position, takes away that additional option from the midfield. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Of course, Messi tends to, still create chances. But imagine having someone like Ian Frey, who's not only unafraid to go up top, but also gets involved very well, gets at the end of crosses, can play with the ball at his feet. It's basically having like two Albas on each side of Messi. And we all know how beautifully Messi combines with Alba. Now imagine having a similar option like that in Ian Frey on the other side of the pitch as well. That is an absolute cheat code. And it's going to give us so much more attacking threat that I can't wait to see that happen. I hope we get to see that happen as well, because we all know Tata Martino is not necessarily a big fan of Frey in the right back position, but that would be insane to watch.
Let's rewind 6 months to when Tata Martino was playing this 3-5-2. And the reason it didn't, and we were getting blown out every single time, the reason it didn't work defensively is because we were too spread open. Our back three was too wide a bar, and our midfield was not athletic enough to stop the runners. But it also wasn't effective offensively, because our front two were playing so narrow that the back line of the opposition could also play very narrow, make it very difficult for anyone to operate in those spaces. And that clogged up those areas so much that Messi and Suarez couldn't even be that effective. And so the positive change was going back to a 4-3-3, putting Robert Taylor or Diego Gomez at that left wing spot, spreading that back line out to one direction. And just spreading it out in one direction helped clear so much space for Messi and Suarez to operate effectively, and their numbers went through the roof, and we started scoring a bunch of goals. Now, imagine doing that on both sides of the pitch. The two center backs, or if we're playing a back three, are going to be in so much trouble trying to man up with Messi and Suarez one-on-one, because the two fullbacks are occupied. It is going to be a nightmare for opposing defenses, and I, for one, am thrilled, so excited to see it.
And it's not even about the crossing ability of Ian Frey. He is such a good ball carrier, and I think that's a massive threat, understated ability that he has. He can just, if Lionel Messi just pops the ball into him, he can carry it into the final third and create a threatening opportunity, and that itself is so valuable.
And think about this: as Messi glides centrally, like he likes to do, if the fullback comes with him, then that entire area is going to be wide open. And now we have an actual threat to take the ball, and who is calm and comfortable on the ball in that area, right? DeAndre Yedlin, especially in the final third, and I think Cello to a little bit lesser extent, but still there. They're not comfortable and confident there. And so they want to get the ball off quickly. They don't see the game as well because they're, they're rushed. And so for Ian Frey to be there, I think it's going to be awesome. That'll spread the defense back out. And then Messi, who we saw a couple times last year, not that much this season, will make those runs in behind when everyone's not paying attention, and he'll just get those tap-in goals from Ian Frey. I'm very excited for it.
All right. My turn?
Your turn.
So I saw your tactical partnership, and I'm going to raise you my own tactical partnership in the midfield with Sergio Busquets and Yannick Wright. We haven't seen that combination enough times throughout the season, and I am really looking forward to seeing both Busquets and Yannick Bright play together in a midfield where we have a competent backline and the ability that Busquets has on the ball with the destroyer that Yannick Bright is, I think that can really unleash our midfield and create those opportunities. Put them next to Diego Gomez. That for me is the perfect recipe to go out and win a game. We spoke about at the start of the season how Sergio Busquets' best position now at this point in time in his career might be at a 10, like higher up the pitch, because this was a conversation that we were having when he was losing the ball a lot in the midfield, wasn't necessarily as comfortable with the ball at the start of the season, whether it was fitness, whether it was just lack of form, we don't know. So we thought about having Busquets play higher up. That wasn't necessarily possible because we didn't have a complementary midfielder next to him to try and control and shore up the defense and close down the midfield. Now we do. With the emergence of Yannick Bright, his positioning and his ability to eat up space really allows Busquets to now be a vertical bombing midfielder up the top where he could just either sit back and spread from the deep, or he could get involved in the attack when Messi's on the pitch, when Alba's on the pitch, and get involved in the final third creation. I think, okay, this word is overused in football vernacular, but having Yannick Bright in there with Sergio Busquets might actually unlock Sergio Busquets even more if that's possible. And I'm super excited to see that.
I went back. I just looked at every game that they've started together, and I don't think they've started together in the midfield once. That doesn't mean they haven't played at all, especially in like the second half when Bright would come on in the midfield. But almost every Yannick Bright start has been with Busquets as a center back or in a back three. So I think this could be the first time we see those two together, which makes me intrigued because I am interested to see how that plays out. I know Tata Martino likes to have those two guys that are going to press forward. And I don't really know if either Yannick Bright or Sergio Busquets really fits that mold, but they could. We've talked about getting Sergio Busquets higher up the field a lot this season. And if you have Yannick Bright behind him, you then have the freedom and creativity for Busquets and the license for Busquets to get forward without the defensive responsibilities. So I think that would be amazing. I especially think that would be great when Messi comes back. But even if we see that on Saturday night, that's how I would line up. And I do think we're going to see it eventually because Yannick Bright, even though he's only come in when Busquets has moved off of the 6, has earned the right to continue playing and given an opportunity alongside Busquets. And so I think Inter Miami's best 11 has those two together in the midfield.
Hey, I said this earlier when we were having a conversation about this, and you mentioned how you prefer Sergio Busquets in the backline, but I still think the best iteration of this Inter Miami team is with Sergio Busquets in the midfield.
Yeah, and I want to see it though, because and I think one of the things that scares me about putting Busquets back in the midfield is I just know Tata, and then he's going to bench Yannick Bright. And we're going to go right back to the problems we had earlier in the season where our midfield could just not hold. It just couldn't hold itself together. And you need a true holding midfielder to hold the midfield together. And that's what Yannick Bright provides that no one else on this roster provides. So I'm scared that Tata is going to just throw Bright back on the bench for a long time. But I think Yannick Bright's been so good of late that he's going to get an opportunity alongside Busquets. I'm really excited for that.
Yep.
Okay, next. Something we have only seen once, and it was solid, was Toto Aviles and David Martinez playing next to each other for a sustained period of time. Center back partnerships need time to develop. They need chemistry. They need great communication. They need to understand what each other are going to be doing at all times. And we have not seen that much. I think we got it for one game. Maybe the Toronto game, we saw it for half an hour. But Aviles has had knocks, a suspension. David Martinez had a suspension. Of course, David Martinez only got here like 3 or 4 games ago. So we haven't seen it much. But I think as they get more time together, they're going to blossom into something great. They both have the athletic traits. I think you always want to have, I think an ideal center back partnership has someone that can cover for the other one and the other player be really good in possession. So you have your distributor in David Martinez. You have the cover guy in Toto Aviles. I don't think either are particularly bad in the air. So I think it's going to be really good. It's just a matter of coming together. and getting some time on the pitch together. And so once we get to that Columbus game and they've had 5, 6, 7 games together, right, 5 games together, I think they're going to be a much better partnership. And I think we're going to start to see this team really click.
Yeah, two thoughts on that. First of all, great shout. But we've barely seen David Martinez. We've seen him for 3 games. Of one game, he got suspended in the first 15 minutes. So I'm really excited just to see David Martinez back on the pitch. I think he needs to get back into a rhythm of playing games because he's been in and out of the team since he's come in. So that's going to be really exciting to see. Very high potential. I think he's the best centre back that we have in the club at this point in time. Can't wait for him to get back into the starting 11. Same with Toto Aviles. I think there are question marks about what Toto is to this team. At one point, he was supposed to be the leading centre back that we were creating our backline around. Sometimes he can make rash decisions and stuff, but overall he's a good player. And I remember, and I think we spoke about this. I'm not sure if this was on camera or offline, but you mentioned that Aviles is one of those players that you see the first time when you watch a game and you're like, oh, he's terrible. And then you rewatch the game and you're like, you know what? He's not actually that bad. And the perfect example of that was the Toronto game, where I thought he had a really bad game when I first saw it. And then when I rewatched the game, I thought he was the better player, like one of the better players on the pitch, because he had some really good tackles. He was getting around, decent positioning. I think his distribution is something he can work on, but that's where David Martinez comes in.
Right. That's it. Right.
Yeah, they're going to complement each other really well, and I'm excited to see that.
One of the things that was awesome about having Busquets in the back line was that you finally got distribution from the back line in a way that we hadn't had all season. And it was really cool because you could play expansively and in a way that allowed us to open up teams in a way that we couldn't before then, because Nico Freire wasn't that guy. Christoph wasn't that guy. Aviles wasn't that guy. Jordi Alba doesn't really play that role. And Drake Calendar's not that guy. So to finally get a true distributor in that back line was really nice with Busquets. But now having that with David Martinez and then allowing Busquets to get back to the midfield, I think is really going to be fun. I did see someone say earlier, Anton, that it was bummed that we didn't get another great center back in the window. I could play FIFA with this roster plus Cesar Montes, but maybe I should just put that dream away for now. But yeah, it would have been awesome. But I do think Toto Aviles can fill that role, and I'm excited to see him step up into it.
And I'm thinking, the more I think about it tactically, I think there's an iteration in our attack build-up where Sergio Busquets sits in between Martinez and Toto Aviles to dictate from the deep. And that could be a potential formation when we're on the ball. And having both those qualities of David Martinez and Sergio Busquets in distribution is going to be really valuable. We saw that in one game. And that doesn't necessarily require Busquets to play in the back line. When we have the ball, he can always sit deep and dictate from behind. But yeah, it's a very exciting prospect, and I can't wait to see. And another thing that you mentioned that I want to reiterate a bit is that centre-back partnerships need to build chemistry together. I think the more Aviles and Martinez play together before the playoffs, the better they're going to get. And that, I think, is something I really look forward to. The more they develop that chemistry, the more they understand what their deficiencies are playing next to each other, and they can learn to, build on that, fill those gaps, and potentially be a very solid centre-back partnership. So, yeah, exciting times.
Yeah, I'll go with the next one.
All right. Speaking of partnerships, I think that's the theme of this episode, but one thing that we haven't seen much at all, in fact, from the start of a game, is a two-strike partnership that involves both Suarez and Campana. We've seen Suarez and Rojas. We've seen Suarez and Gomez. We've seen Campana and Gomez perhaps at some point in the season. But we haven't seen both our strikers on the pitch at the same time. Both of them are very different to one another, right? Campana does things that Suarez doesn't do, and then Suarez does things that Campana potentially cannot do. So having those two playing together, I feel like there's something there. And just putting them on the pitch at the same time could provide us with a tactical setup that we haven't necessarily seen. And I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see if it can work out or not. Yes, there are question marks about it, but I think it could genuinely have a utility throughout the season or the rest of the season. And I want to see it, man. I want to see Tata utilize that.
I don't think we're going to see it on Saturday night against Cincinnati, but I think it's what I would do. I'm thinking about that Columbus Crew game, and I know we put Matias Rojas up top, and I know Rojas was fine, and I know that he scored a goal, and I know that he was solid, but I just can't help but think that that is a role better fit for Leo Campana, because you can have Suarez drop in and control the ball and hold up play and leak guys out for forward balls, but you just didn't have someone making runs over the top that had the athleticism. You didn't have someone pressing from the front like Campana can. So I think if you can get those two on the field together, it could be really special. And I think we will get it at least once this year. And I'm very excited for what that looks like. It's not going to happen when Messi's back. And so I think it's a matter of, in the next 2 or 3 games, but those two together, I think, have earned an opportunity. And I think it could really work if the rest of the offense is built around those two being the dynamic playmakers and goal scorers. And it's just a matter of Tata is willing to try something that he might have to go back to, because, again, if we face Columbus, God forbid, without Lionel Messi again, you got to mix it up. And this is a way to mix it up. And if that matchup without Messi happens in the playoffs, I want to have tried this already so that we know what it looks like. Give me that, and I think it is going to happen.
Yeah, Upcourt doesn't agree with us because not enough space or ball handling. I don't think I agree with this. I think the biggest issue in the game that we played against Columbus was our tactics relied on having runners in behind for Suarez to put the ball into. He was actually doing really well handling the ball. He was getting in the right places, holding the ball up, and he just did not have anyone making the runs in behind him to try and break that high line that Columbus was playing. I think Campana can actually do that. I disagree. I think there's definitely something in there. Maybe we get proven wrong when they do play together and we say, okay, this is something that we never want to see again. But I do want to see a little bit of that combination, at least at some point during the season. And as Scotty mentioned, I want to see it at a time when we can afford to experiment a little bit, and not against Columbus when we need to, get goals. Suarez Taylor could also be a good option, as Gus has mentioned in the chat. But I feel like there's something with the Suarez Campana partnership that I really want to see at least one time in the season.
I also think Campana doesn't get enough credit for his ability outside of the box. I watched Higuain and I watched Jose Martinez, and Campana can do things holding up play, pushing guys in behind, and making that final pass that those other players just couldn't. So I think that considering him, single dimensional, I think unidimensional is probably not an accurate description of Campana, but I understand he hasn't played a ton this season, and so I can understand why people feel that way. Speaking of Luis Suarez, this is what everyone should be excited about. His next goal will set the single season record for goals for an Inter Miami player. He is currently on 16, and this is something I haven't heard anyone talk about. He's currently on 16 goals this season, tied with the 2022 version of Gonzalo Higuain, who did have that amazing run in the second half, but he only finished with 16 goals. That's what Suarez is on right now. So his next goal will make him the all-time single-season goal scorer for Inter Miami, and that could happen Saturday night. And I haven't really heard anyone talk about this yet.
Yeah, it's really understated, isn't it? It feels like Suarez hasn't necessarily been playing well, but when you look at the stats, he's been scoring or assisting practically every other game. And that's a really weird feeling. And now that you point that out, I can't believe he's already going to, outscore Higuain, who we thought had a phenomenal season. So maybe it's just the expectations, but he's been fine throughout the season.
Well, and it has been a long time since we've seen Suarez just like dominate, right?
Yeah.
The first month or two, it was just like goal, 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 hat trick, goal, goal. But of late, it hasn't really seemed like that. He missed a lot of time with Copa America. He's scored a couple goals over the last couple games actually. But on the season, over a goal contribution a game, 16 goals, 8 assists. He's been everything you could possibly have wanted in him this season, other than just getting more of him. And so, great player, and he's about to earn a record that no one else has ever done in Inter Miami's history, and no one's talking about it.
And the biggest value is that even when the fans think he's not in good form, he still scores. He gets still assists, and that's a big asset to have in your team. He can't be dropped. When he's fit and ready to play, he will play every game. He might have the worst 90 minutes, but in that 92nd minute, he's probably going to produce the best pass or the best shot in the game and win us the game potentially. So, he could, and I think he's not stopping anytime soon. So he's not only going to break Higuain's record, I think he's going to break it by a lot. Excited to see that happen. And once Messi comes back, that might take Suarez back to the level that we saw at the start of the season. So maybe he's not as happy playing on the pitch when his best friend's not with him, and he's just conserving energy for when Messi comes back to be able to score those hat tricks again.
Dude, I mentioned this with Messi, but Ian Frey being a threat on that right wing is also going to make Luis Suarez a more dangerous player and a more effective goal-scoring threat. Anyways, I don't want to make this about Ian Frey. Everyone understands, but
another comment from the chat. His knees are disintegrating in front of our eyes. My knees hurt just watching him. That's actually really true. The way he runs, I feel like he's been running like that throughout his career, but it doesn't look pretty by any means. And I saw something the other day on Twitter that Suarez is considering whether or not he should play the next season, because the reports suggest that he's not in the best physical state and might not be able to sustain those levels anymore. So it will be interesting to see what his future looks like for Inter Miami, whether he extends his contract or not, but something to keep in mind. Could be the last time that we see him on the pitch.
Yeah, I don't want to think about that yet. I'm sure that's a decision that'll be made in the offseason. And so for now, let's just enjoy him through this MLS Cup championship run. What is the next one? Please enlighten.
I think it's your turn to select the next one.
No, that was mine. Luis Suarez becoming all-time goal scorer.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I had gone before this. Okay. I'm not excited, but intrigued to see, particularly, whether Cello Wiegand can get back into a good form and whether he's actually going to be kept on for next season, because I believe he's on a loan, right? And the same for Mateus Rojas, because he's also on a season-long loan for Inter Miami. And I want to see how they develop over the next few games and what the thinking behind them is, whether we get to keep them for beyond the season, or is this going to be a one and done sort of a deal? I think the answers at this point in time are quite different for the two players. Cello Wiegand, maybe not. Mateus Rojas, maybe yes. So something I'm looking forward to seeing how the loan players actually, what the considerations for them are.
Yeah, and Cello, not the only one that is in that situation. Obviously, Mateus Rojas on the 1-year contract. Sergei Kristov, also a guy that can be moved on after this season. Franco Negri, I believe, can be moved on after this season. I'm just trying to think of who else might be. Obviously, Diego Gomez. But the two players that I think are playing for their future, now that we know Robert Taylor's signed on, are Mateus Rojas and Cello Wiegand. And so Rojas, I think, is a little bit more complicated because you have Facundo Farias coming back. But especially Cello Wiegand, that loan option, there's an option to buy. All they have to do is activate it, but that will cost them money. It will cost them space under the cap. And has Cello proven that he's worth that? Has he proven that he's the very best option available? Certainly, I think we've been disappointed with his last couple games. And I don't want to negatively criticize his whole season based on a few poor performances just because they're fresh. But certainly also, I don't think we've been amazed by Cello Wiegand this season. I don't think that he's been like a difference maker. And I'm also not sure there's not another player out there that Tata Martino wouldn't think could upgrade this position at right back. Certainly, he doesn't
There's
think that
another
about.
player out there in our very team who can upgrade
So,
that position
well,
in right back.
I understand, but you're not going to trust Ian Frey to be the number one guy for an entire season just because of
Yeah.
health concerns. So you have to have another right back available, and maybe they decide Ian Frey is the right back, and that Cello Wiegand comes back next year as the backup. Maybe, I don't know, but I think that for Cello Wiegand, his future is going to be decided over the next couple months. And certainly Tata is going to give him opportunities to prove himself. But if he loses that starting job because he is just being outplayed, I think that means he's going back to Boca Juniors and he's not going to be with this team anymore. So big couple months for Cello Wiegand, and I think he really needs to step it up. And then the same thing with Matias Rojas. I don't know what he wants from his future. I think we've seen enough from him to say he's a really good player. And also, if he's okay being like a squad player, like we're definitely happy to have him. But we haven't seen him really with Messi be like a locked-in starter, and it doesn't feel like the bodies all make sense. So those two players, guys that could be playing their final games with Inter Miami, or they could be playing themselves into a new contract with Inter Miami. So that's really something to look out for. I like that one.
Yeah, and I think just the last thing, even if we do end up winning the MLS Cup, which I hope we do, I still think there's potential to upgrade in some of these players. Not because they're bad players by any means, but just because what Inter Miami is trying to achieve while Messi is still here. So definitely a point to keep in mind for sure in the future.
And then the same applies to Nico Frede, but I think that decision is probably already going to be made because they brought in a left-sided center back in David Martinez. He's on loan until next summer at the very least. So I think Frede is probably going back to Pumas. No, yeah, Pumas in the winter.
All right.
Okay, next one. We're getting to the end here, man. But
penultimate, right? We're on number 9.
Yeah, this is one that I think is important for Inter Miami to just get past. And that is their abysmal record against NYCFC. They've played them, I think, 9 or 10 times in their history. They've only won one of those games. They're going to get another opportunity. And, even back earlier this season, we played them at Chase Stadium, and we got a very frustrating 1-1 draw. We have another opportunity. We are going to Mickey Mouse Park, and we are going to play on the small field, and hopefully we have our full team available at Yankee Stadium, which I don't want to make fun of the stadium because it is a beautiful park, but it is meant for baseball, not soccer. We have to go win that game. Go win the game, put it behind you, know that NYFC is a bad team and that you are no longer going to be cursed by that team for whatever reason it is, and just put it behind you. And for the fans, at least, do that.
Do you remember when we did the Drive Pink games and we did the quiz? And there was a question on there about who's the one team that Inter Miami has the worst record against, or something along those lines. And it was NYCFC. And when I was looking at it, I was like, this is the weirdest stat ever, especially against a team that hasn't necessarily been that great in the last couple of seasons. We should have won that game at Chase Stadium the last time around we played them. 1-1 was super annoying, as AZ mentions here. I think we have a different opinion on what's going to happen when we play them at Mickey Mouse. You said it's going to be a low-scoring game, right? And I think that's the one game where my 7-2 prediction is actually going to come true. I think all we have to do is put on the pitch every single player who knows how to handle the ball. And we are absolutely going to play them out of the park when that happens. Again, I'm going to eat my words, and this is exactly not what's going to happen, but I would love for it to be that 7-2 game, because that's the perfect way to end a curse against any team. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think this is a team that has been on the up and up. New York City FC has been playing really well since we played them, and we drew to them 1-1. I'm not sure where they are in the table right now, but they got to the semifinals of the Leagues Cup, or the quarterfinals, and they've just been in good form. So it'll be a difficult game for sure, away from home in that small Mickey Mouse Stadium. Not excited for that game.
They say it's They say it's 70 yards wide. And I think generally we put it like 80 to 85, but I think it's like 63 yards wide. You're going to see, if you've never watched a game there, you're going to look at it and you're going to be like, what is happening here? How are
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
This is like a little league stadium. I don't know, man. I do think you can put a different midfield together in that game. Like I think Gressel and Busquets can fit together in that game effectively. And I think that would be interesting. But I don't know. We'll have to see who plays once we get there. But Inter Miami is the better team. They are going to be in form. They're hopefully going to have Messi back. It's just lining up to just win that game and put this curse behind you for once and for all. So I'm excited for that.
All right. Is this the last one?
This is the last one.
I want to end on a high note. So, the one last thing of the 10 things that we've been excited about is Diego Gomez balling out for Inter Miami for his final run as a Heron. I think all of us were very relieved when we heard the news that Diego Gomez is going to be staying on for at least the end of the season before he moves on to Brighton. And honestly, at this point in time, I am so glad that he's still going to be part of this team until the end of the season because he is in tremendous form. What an absolute baller of a player. Beast in the midfield, offers something that I don't think any other player offers. And he is going to be key if we have to go on a run and win the MLS Cup. I think Diego Gomez will have to play the game of his life for us to get there to the final and win. And I think he's going to do it, man. He has been steadily growing into this season, started off in really hot form, got injured, unfortunately. I thought he would come back and be a little bit in a dip of form, trying to get back into the game rhythm. He did not even miss a beat. He was back into it and he's scoring regularly. I'd love to see his goals per minute stats because I feel like he scores every other game, much like Suarez. So to have him in the team is invaluable, and it also means that we don't have to replace him with anybody, and we glad we didn't replace him with anybody. But yeah, it would have just changed the structure of the transfer window a little bit, and I'm glad we kept him on.
Yeah, dude, when we did our draft, I drafted him third behind Messi and Suarez, and you looked at me like, what are you doing? And that was like the joke of the draft, but I stand by it, dude. He is so good. He's more impactful for this team than both Alba and Busquets. And I know that might be sacrilege to say, but he's been that good. He's been that impactful. And I'm with you, man. It's going to be a pleasure watching him every single time. And I think knowing that we're getting closer to the end makes it a little sweeter in a sense because you're getting to see the finale of this movie that has been Diego Gomez at Inter Miami. And I'm really excited for that.
And yeah, I hope we can give him a good send-off to the Premier League by winning the cup. And, he gets to enjoy that feeling of lifting the cup for Inter Miami, because if we do that, as I mentioned, he's going to be as much responsible for that as someone like Messi or Busquets. And he's a key player in this team that I don't think we can replace anytime soon. So hopefully we get to send him off with the highest of honors when we win the MLS Cup.
Okay, let's wrap this up with a scale game. And I want you to give me a number, 1 to 10 of how excited you are for each of these, okay? Number 1, that game between Inter Miami and the Columbus Crew with Lionel Messi on the field. How excited are you for that?
Well, number 9, man, that could potentially be the game of the season. I
think for me, that's a 10. I am so excited. And if we win that game, we're going to look back on it like that was awesome. So I'm very excited for that one. Yannick Bright versus Lucho Costa, round 2 coming up Saturday night. How are you feeling about it?
I'm excited 8, but there's also a little bit of hesitancy because I hope that if Yannick Bright plays that game, he has the right setup around him so that he's not exposed the same way that he was in the first game where our backline was playing so high that Cincinnati was just able to exploit that easily. So I'll give it a cautious 7.5, 8, but I am looking forward to that deal for sure.
Yeah, give me like a 7, maybe even a 6, because I'm a little hesitant to think that's even going to happen. But if it does happen, I think it'll be really cool, and I think it'll be a great learning experience for one of our young midfielders. And we kind of got beat up by them. So I think the whole team is feeling like we gotta get our redemption. And if you remember earlier in the season, we lost 4-0 on the road at the New York Red Bulls. And what did we do back at home? 6-2 victory. So I'm hoping for one of those performances, and I think the team wants one of those performances.
7-2, baby. 7-2.
Yeah, let's do that. Ian Frey and Lionel Messi playing on the same side of the field together.
You got to increase your scale a little bit because 10 is not enough. That is
10.
the
10
ultimate
for me
dream
too.
of any Inter Miami fan.
10 for me too. I'm so excited for that. Busquets and Bright in the midfield together, double pivot.
Solid 9, man. Solid 9. I see potential there. I think it can really work. And I hope it does. I hope we get to see it at one point.
Yeah, I'm going to give it an 8 because I think it'll be really good. And I think if they partner well together, and I expect them to partner well together, it will become the foundation of our midfield for the rest of the season. So that I'm really looking forward to. And not having to worry about this. Is he going to start Yannick Bright? Is he going to leave our midfield exposed? Are we going to have enough athleticism? Like, all of those questions will be put to bed if we get these two on the field together and it clicks. Speaking of partnerships, David Martinez and Toto Aviles, how are you feeling about that one?
8. I think that's our best center-back partnership, and it has to come to fruition at some point in time. I just want to get them to build their chemistry as soon as possible so that when they go into that playoff run, they're in the best of form and they understand each other like the back of their hands. So I'm excited for that one, for sure.
Give me a 7 on that one. I'm more excited for Busquets and Bright together, but just along the same lines, David Martinez and Toto Aviles, I think they complement each other well. They are more athletic than anything we've had all season. And again, if they click, you found your foundation. And so I am excited for that. Miami playing a 2-striker formation with Suarez and Campana. I have wanted them to go with a 4-4-2 all season. Not all season, but all season I would have liked them to see it at one time with the two being Campana and Suarez. We haven't seen it yet. I think we're going to see it, and I think it's going to be cool. I don't think we're going to get it a ton. I think we might only get it once or twice, but I am excited for that, and I do think it's going to happen at least once. Give me an 8 on that one.
Yeah, I'll take a 7.5, 8 on that one. I still am hesitant to see how it works in practice and whether it sacrifices another part of the pitch for accommodating someone like Campana in there. But I do think there's definitely a point to be made about how useful it can be in certain situations and certain games. And we saw it once, I believe. I think at one point we saw that, but I want to see it more often.
We've seen it off the bench. I don't think we've ever seen it
like
to start. Luis Suarez becoming the single season goal scorer, top goal scorer.
10, man. 10. Give it a 10.
I want more hype to be around this because it could happen on Saturday night and no one's talking about it. And I hope
because
that
I think
changes
it's the standard that Luis Suarez has set for himself. Like everyone, I think, expected that to happen. So it feels like it's gone under the radar a little bit. But I agree with you. There needs to be more hype about this.
Maybe
for someone they said was completely washed, by the way. If you remember what they said at the start of the season. So
I know. It would be cool if he did it like on a hat trick. Like he gets a hat trick and doesn't just set the record, but he sets it with a statement. That would be awesome. Saturday night, great time to get a hat trick for Luis Suarez. Finding out if Chelo Wigan and Matias Rojas are keepers for next season.
6. I'll see.
Yeah, I'm a little lower on that one too. Maybe we should have ordered these a different way, to build to the excitement. But
that's my bad. I brought
Inter Miami breaking the NYCFC curse at Mickey Mouse Park.
I think it's high time, man. I think it's high time. I'll be uber excited for this if we win 7-2. Guys, I can't express enough how much I'm craving that 7-2 scoreline because I predicted that at the start of our season. And that hasn't come to fruition. It almost came to fruition against New York, and we just were missing one goal. So I hope we get to see that. And I do think that game is it, man. That game is it.
And then last one. Well, what's your score for that one?
8.
Yeah, I give it a 7 for that one. And then finally, Diego Gomez balling out for his final games as an Inter Miami Heron.
It's a little bit of a bittersweet one. So I'm going to give it a 9. I think I really want him to do well towards the end of the season and end on a high note, but it's going to be sad to see him leave. But I watched the Premier League, so I'm going to see him around, obviously.
I think it's a romantic 10 for me.
Yeah.
Unlike, I know you mentioned it's going to be sad to see him leave, but I think because it's leaving in the perfect way, it's staying with the team through the championship run, it's having kissed the badge, him going on to live out his dream, and Inter Miami not being caught off guard, not being caught unprepared. They're going to have plenty of time to find a replacement. We're going to have plenty of months to, shape the roster without him.
Yep.
Like, I think everything about this exit is perfect for Diego Gomez. And so we just get to enjoy him balling out for us. And every single time we have a post-game recap, when he played, we're going to be talking about him because he always has that type of impact basically every time he steps on the pitch. So I'm really excited, and give me that romantic 10 to finish it off. Yeah.
There it is. The top 10 things that we're most excited about, because we need some excitement into Miami, man.
I know. And I think all of these are cool and exciting things to have happen. They're things to look forward to. And it has been a sad week and a half, a quiet week and a half after a disappointing loss. And so these are just some things that you can really wrap into and get excited for this season. Guys, that was why we wanted to do this podcast, bring some energy and enthusiasm back into this Inter Miami season. We have a big game on Saturday. We will be back, as always, 1 hour before kickoff, right here live on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on your podcast app, we do that live on YouTube to get out the nerves, talk about that game in the hour leading up to kickoff. So from lineup release to kickoff, we will be here with you guys live, talking out our nerves, and we hope to see you guys then. But until then, I'm Scotty. This is Saur. We hope you have a wonderful night and enjoy the next 48 hours until we get nervous about that FC Cincinnati game. See you guys next time.